everyone, this is Heather. Thanks so much for joining me. Today I've got a card tutorial for you for this sweet springtime card, and we're going to be doing some paper piecing and watercoloring with watercolor pencils. So I'm using the Stampin' Up! Garden Girl stamp set, and I'm going to be using the grass and the bunny and the girl, the little baskets with the carrots. I just think this is such a sweet set. It would be great for Easter, spring, Mother's Day. Just a really, really cute set. I'm also using a sentiment from another Stampin' Up! Set. This is from Hedgehugs, and I'm using Today is Special Just Like You. So it's kind of a good general all occasion or for a birthday. So we're just going to be using the sentiments from that. And we're also going to be using the watercolor pencils from Stampin' Up! So let's get started. So you're going to need a white cardstock base. I just took an 8.5 by 11 sheet of white cardstock, cut, scored, and folded it in half for the cardstock base. Then I've got a piece of Pool Party cardstock from Stampin' Up! And it's been cut to 5 1/4 by 4. And then I've got a small piece of pattern paper that's just a little bit bigger than the girl's dress. So you just need a scrap of whatever pattern paper. This is a really pretty floral print. And then I'm also using watercolor paper. I'm using a Strathmore cold press watercolor paper to stamp on. And because I'm using watercolor pencils and it's a water-based product, I'm going to be stamping with StazOn ink, and I'm just using the jet black StazOn. So because the watercolor paper has a little bit of a texture to it, I'm going to be using a stamp positioner in case I need to ink up my stamps and stamp it multiple times to get a good impression. So I'm taking a piece of watercolor paper that I've cut to 5 by 3 3/4, and I am placing it down in the lower right hand corner of my stamp positioner. And I am left-handed, so you may use your stamp positioner in a different position, but this is how I usually do it because I am a lefty. And I'm going to place face down my little girl and the words where I want them, and I have taken out the foam that comes in the positioner because this is a foam mounted rubber stamp set. I'm going to get that where I want it. I'm going to bring my lid over and pick up my stamps, and I'm going to ink them up with the black StazOn ink. This is great about a stamp positioner. You can do multiple stamps all at once. Bring my stamp positioner over and give it a good press. But usually on watercolor paper, it takes 2 times, sometimes more, to get a good impression. So you can kind of see that it didn't ink up very well, that there's still some of that kind of texture showing. So I'm just going to ink everything up again with the StazOn and stamp that out one more time, and that should be good. Give it a good press. Sorry, I'm really shaking my table, so the camera's probably shaking. There, and that looks great. Okay, so I am using a stamp chamois from Lawn Fawn, and I'm going to clean off my words, and I'm done with those, so I'm going to place them off to the side. I'm going to take my watercolor paper out and bring in my pattern paper, and I'm going to go ahead and clean my girl stamp off just so that I don't get a lot of excess on the back inside of my stamp positioner. You could also lay a scrap piece of paper down in the back. So I'm just gonna figure out. So what I'm doing is just stamping out the dress for the paper piecing so that she has this pretty pattern on her dress. So all we need to do is just ink up the dress part. I'm gonna see. That looks like that's where the dress is. Put my magnets down on my stamp positioner. Grab my StazOn ink pad again, and I'm just kind of inking up the center of the stamp since we only need the dress. Move my magnet out of the way a little bit there. Give that a good press, and once again, if it doesn't stamp out very well, I can ink it up, but that looks pretty good. Pattern paper's not got too much texture to it. So again, I'm going to take my stamp chamois, clean off my little girl, move her out of the way. I'm done with her. Take my pattern paper out, put my smaller piece of watercolor paper in for the rabbit, and this has been cut to 2.5 by 2.5. Place my bunny in there, pick it up on my lid, again ink it up with the StazOn, and probably will need to do that twice as well. Well, that's pretty good. Just for safe measure, I'll go ahead and a little bit more ink. I put my StazOn away. We're done with that. Stamp that out one more time, and my bunny looks good. Clean him off. Get the paper out, and we are done with the stamp positioner. Very, very handy. Love the stamp positioner. So I'm gonna bring my papers over and get some watercolored pencils, and I'm using mostly Stampin' Up watercolor pencils. I'm using Pumpkin Pie, Calypso Coral, Old Olive, Daffodil Delight, and Early Espresso. And unfortunately there's not a flesh tone in the Stampin' Up watercolor pencils, so I am using a Staedtler. There's no name to it, but it's just a flesh tone. So I'm also going to grab a paper towel and a water brush, and I'm going to begin to color my little girl. And one of the things that I really like about watercolor pencils is you just kind of want to get just sort of sketchy with it. It doesn't have to be exact. It's like a very loose, artsy sort of look. So it does not have to be perfect, especially when you're laying down the color. You can just kind of scribble with the pencil because the water brush is going to be doing most of the work of moving the color around. So I'm grabbing a water brush, and what I like to do is on my paper towel just squeeze, get some water on the brush, and then go to my image and move that color around. Just get that nice wash on there. And I usually will do a pencil, then use the water brush, clean it off, use the next color, clean it off like that. I don't like to color the entire thing and then, let me move my paper towel over here. I don't like to color the entire thing with the pencils and then go in with the water brush just in case colors were to bleed together or get too muddy. That's just how I work. And also, you don't have to use watercolor pencils. You can use any medium that you'd like. And now I'm going to go in with the orange color and color in my carrots. Squeeze my brush, get a little bit of water on there. That colored out, and then go back to the paper towel and clean that off. So that's all we need the orange for. The tops of the carrots and the green. So just real quick and loose. Doesn't have to be perfect. If you go outside the lines, that's okay. And now I'm going to grab the pinkish color, and I'm going to add just a little bit to her lips, and then I want to give her some big pretty round cheeks. So just in a circular pattern, going around under her eyes there and adding in some cheeks for her. And then on the bunny, I want to do the inside of the bunny's ear, and then I want to give him just a little bit of a pink nose. So I'm going to add just a little bit of pink, get my brush wet, kind of spread that color out. So there's my bunny. And on the cheeks of my little girl and her lips. So that just gives her a nice little blush there. Clean off my water brush. And now I'm going to grab the daffodil and I'm going to color her hair bows and her cute little rain boots, or if you're in Britain they call them wellies, I think. And then also on the dress, I'm going to use the same yellow and I'm going to color the collar, cuffs, and pockets of her dress. The same yellow watercolor pencil. Get my brush wet and that colored in. So on the pattern paper, you don't want to add too much water. It will really warp. That if you use a very light hand and don't apply too much water, you'll be fine. You can still kind of move that color around. It shows up nicely on that pattern paper. Just gives a little bit more color and just sort of helps tie everything together. Done with the yellow, and now I'm going to grab the brown and I'm going to color my bunny rabbit, and I decided to leave his belly and his cute little poofy tail white, so I just didn't add any color at all. I'm just going to add a little brown to the bunny. Like I said, just messy, sketchy. The water will do the work for you. And then I'm also going to be doing the basket. And if you want to add, you know, take your time and add more shading and lighter and darker areas with the watercolor pencils, you can. Just kind of being quick with it. And I'm sort of following the hairline there for her hair. Just it'll be a little bit darker in those areas. And just a little bit more color lightly. And I'm doing this pretty quickly. You can take your time. And just go back and get some water on our water brush. And finish up her hair. So you can kind of see where I applied a little bit more pressure and not applying too much water. She still has some of those kind of darker streaks in her hair. But just a little bit more. There we go. And then the basket. Make sure we get the little top of the handle there. So that's all the watercoloring that we're going to do on her. And let's bring the bunny over and move that brown around on my bunny rabbit. I just love this bunny. He's just got such a cute little sweet face and big old poofy tail. He's adorable. Okay, so there's my bunny. Done with my water brush. And set that off to the side. And now I'm going to cut out the bunny rabbit and just the dress of my girl. So on the bunny, I'm going to leave a little bit of white space around the rabbit. Just with my scissors, just take your time and carefully go around and leave some white space there. But on the dress, I want to cut right on that black line. So don't worry about anything other than the dress. And you're just gonna very carefully follow that line, leaving as much of the black line as you can. Now, if you trim a little bit of it off, that's okay, because the main stamped image will still have that line. And it won't matter. So just take your time, really carefully go around the dress and cut out the entire image. So I'm gonna finish cutting these out and I'll be right back. Okay, so I have cut my pieces out. So I've cut my bunny, leaving just a little bit of white around, and then I've carefully cut out the dress right on that black line. I'm going to add a little bit of adhesive to the back of the dress. And if you want to use some liquid adhesive to get in all those little spaces, you could. And then I'm just going to line this up just like a little puzzle piece. So I'm just going to line this up right over top of that main stamped image. And now she has got a pretty floral dress on. I absolutely love paper piecing. It is so much fun. You can use so many different patterns and colors to get some really fun looks on your images. And now I want to add a little bit of grass. I'm using grass from the Garden Girl set and some Pear Pizzazz Stampin' Up ink. And just going to add some areas of grass around her feet, going off the edge a little bit. Okay, so that adds some grass. And now I wanted to add just a little bit of blue for some sky in the background. So I'm using some Pool Party ink. And this is a Tim Holtz sponge blending tool. And I'm going to pick up a little bit of ink and very, very gently just do some circular motions around her. I don't want to, accidentally ink over top of her. And I really don't want a whole lot. I just want just a little bit of a subtle, watch out for your paper piecing that you don't lift that up. Just want just a little bit of subtle blue rather than just the stark white, because we're kind of building up a scene and want to have a little bit of that sky blue in there. So just lightly, you can use the edge, just a little bit of a circular motion. I hope you can see that on camera, but it just adds a nice soft blue touch to the scene, so it looks like there's a little bit of sky. And next I'm going to take a foam square. I'm going to add that to the back of my bunny and add my bunny to the panel. And I kind of tipped him up a little bit so it looks like he's kind of looking up at her, hoping that she will give him a carrot. And now I'm going to add my blue cardstock to my white cardstock base. Center that over top. And now I'm going to add my watercolor paper. And you might want to use a little bit of extra adhesive on the watercolor paper just because it has some texture, just to make sure that it's going to stay on your card and not pop off. So there we go. There's our sweet little spring card. I think it'd be great for Easter or for a spring birthday, Mother's Day, anybody that likes to garden or bunnies. I just think it's really, really cute. So sweet. And I hope you enjoyed the paper piecing technique. It's one of my favorite things to do. It's really easy and a great way to add some extra color, pattern, and texture to your cards. So thank you so much for joining me. If you liked this video, please check out my channel. Got lots of other card tutorials and some product reviews. And I hope you have a really wonderful spring and have a great day. This is Heather. Thanks for joining me. Bye.